Decisions. We make them every second, minute, hour, and day. Some of them conscious and others not. Although humans have always been fascinated by how we make decisions, the actual study of decision science has only come around in the last few decades. This is quite interesting considering just how important decision making is in our everyday lives. A paper on decision making by Damasio and others expresses this importance of decision making best. Although decision making is an activity that is almost as exclusively human as language itself, its neurobiological components have not been studied until the end of the 20th century, which is comparatively much later than the investigation of the biology of language. Despite the rapid changes in our society, we are still learning to understand the inner workings of our mind, uncovering what it means to be human and make decisions correctly. With the advent of big data, however, we have an opportunity to dig deeper into the unknowns of our mind faster, better, and more accurately than ever before. But to see how all this data can help us make decisions better, we need to first look at just how much data is being produced. According to Forbes in 2018, it was estimated that there were 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created each day at the current pace, with 90% of the data in the world generated over the last 2 years alone. Additionally, the World Economic Forum mentioned that mankind was expected to have reached 44 zettabytes of data by 2020, just 2 years ago, and if that number stands to be correct, there would be 40 times more bytes than there are stars in our observable universe. You might be sitting, wondering just how much a zettabyte is, as most of us are familiar with only a gigabyte or a terabyte. Well, to give a bit of context into just how big a zettabyte truly is, and just how much data there really is being made out there, it's important to break this down a bit further. Using an explanation made by data scientist Kirill Eremenko, we'll first look at a single letter. We can assume that a letter takes up about 1 byte of data. If we were to look at it about 1,000 letters, that'd take about a single page of a small book. Then we can assume that amount to be roughly 1 kilobyte of data. Zooming out from there, we can estimate that a 500-page double-sided book would hold enough letters of data to equate to roughly 1 megabyte. Now, if we were to zoom out further, let's take a look at something as massive as the Amazon rainforest. There are roughly about 400 billion trees there. If we were to take all those trees, chop them down, make them into paper, and fill each page with letters of text, we could probably get 2 terabytes of data. You multiply that by 1,000 and you have a single exabyte. So now that you have a rough idea of how much a single exabyte is, let's come back to all that data being made in our world. In 2010 alone, just 12 years ago, we had created roughly 1,200 exabytes of data, or roughly 1 to 2 zettabytes. In December 2020, it was forecasted that the total amount of data created, captured, copied, and consumed in the world was reaching 65 zettabytes. And by 2025, it's expected that we will have a whopping 175 zettabytes of data worldwide. There's no denying that we are swimming in oceans and oceans of data. It's no wonder that a field like data science had risen up and taken the world by storm in the last several years. In fact, on job search platform Glassdoor alone, data scientist was ranked the #1 job for the last 4 years consecutively. This is impressive considering 10 years ago, data science was labeled the sexiest job of the 21st century, and yet it still continues to be in demand a decade later. But staying on track, you might be wondering, what does all this data talk have to do with us making better decisions? Well, for one, as more data continues to pile up, scientists, marketers, and brands alike will all have greater access to information about ourselves. That can translate into more personal specific ads, marketing campaigns, and greater business plans. But not only that, since the big data boom that took off a decade ago, there have been countless data providers that have popped off to help companies and creators to buy, analyze, and learn from data. In this modern digital era, data truly has become an invaluable resource that is important to understand our behaviors. The more data created, the more opportunity to analyze and identify patterns in how we make decisions. Now, all of this is not to say that you need to become a data scientist or anything. This is in no way a promotion of the job itself. In fact, just having or being a data scientist alone is not enough these days. More and more businesses are realizing that data science isn't the end-all be-all to make fruitful decisions. Data, after all, is nothing more than a guideline to understand decisions, to make clear ones through some supported evidence rather than intuition. As such, what we really need in this data-flooded world are more decision scientists. In a world filled with recommendation systems and an abundance of choices, knowing how to make the right decision has become more important than ever before. We are left to constantly decide, and with each decision, there are stakes involved. The consequences of our errors are growing ever more so. A single mishap in judgment caused by the biases in and around us can be the very reasons why we have needless conflicts, marry the wrong people, or accept the wrong jobs. We are living in a knowledge-based, information-driven economy, overwhelmed by endless ads and content. In this ripe, yet hectic digital age, we are inevitably spoiled by choice. As such, a person's ability to make a good decision is one of the most valuable assets to bring to the table. In an ever more increasingly globalized world, there are likely going to be more decisions being made with some form of bias attached to it, whether in our data or from our minds. And as we move into things like the metaverse and an IoT-driven world, more data will continue to accumulate. And while this does pose some risks to our society, it also means more opportunity for us to learn to understand and improve our decision-making process better, faster, and smarter.